Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be talking once again about the box office preview for the next couple of weeks, as we do have an update as far as what the projected numbers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and we also have some initial numbers for Downton Abbey 2. I think it's the second film that they have released. Obviously, it is a series that I was quite fond of myself for the first couple of seasons, and then to me it just got a little monotonous and I eventually gave up on it. Never saw the actual film. However, I know that there are many people who are just fans of the film, or rather fans of the franchise in general, the show and the films, because it's just nice. It's just one of these things where it's a throwback to different times and you just get to escape into some of the characters, and you know, it's kind of just this nice little show that you get to turn your brain off for, and I think that is something that obviously a lot of people want and need in this age of everything being so overtly politicized and identity politics being thrown in every single step of the way. And so I get it. It definitely makes sense to me why people would be into it. But let's go ahead and talk about some of these numbers. Before going any further, please make sure you smash that like button, lap that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. Also, shout out, of course, to my Minds community and Rumble community. However, for Minds, for some reason, it's not letting me upload videos that are a certain length over there anymore. I thought I still had my Minds Plus subscription. Maybe it got canceled. I don't quite know. But anyway, if you're wondering why yesterday's box office breakdown was not posted directly on Minds, that is the reason why. We've had issues in the past with things just not uploading or processing over there. And just know that I'll always at least post a YouTube link. And there's at least one follower of mine who always tags me when the Odyssey link goes live as well. And so it is, of course, available through Odyssey as well if you are really just anti-YouTube, which, again, I totally understand. But we do have one new movie coming out this week. And again, it's kind of this weird, I guess you could say, the breath before the plunge, one might say. Because May 6th, right? So next week's releases is going to see us have something to talk about, because Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is coming out, and that is expected to be a pretty massive opening, at least if these projections are to be believed. And I believe them, because I look at my own local theater and I'm looking at the IMAX showings, and they're either sold out or close to sold out, and they're doing very, very well. And so the weekend right beforehand, I don't know exactly how well or not well it's going to be for some of the other films. What I can say is that the new Liam Neeson film, yes, that's right, Liam Neeson, who makes 4 or 5 films a year, and they're all almost the exact same generic plot. No matter what it is, he's going to be playing someone who is an action hero, action star at his age, which I thought was fine for Taken and was fine for maybe a couple other films. But since that time has just really gotten old with a lot of the films that he ends up doing. This one, to me, just kind of reminds me of another film he did. Remember, he did that film Unknown? And I believe that originally the title was like Unknown White Male, or something to that effect, where he loses his memory. Well, it looks like this film is doing something very similar. Obviously, I think some of the other plot points are a little bit different, but it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, so you're just doing something that you've done before, and I don't quite understand the career he's taking, because these films really aren't making any money. The last film he did ended up losing money at the box office. I believe it was called Blacklight, which came out just earlier this year. So again, this is like the second release that he's going to have this year, if not the third. There might even be another one that he did that I didn't even cover. But this film is expected to open to $1.5 to $5 million, and it has expected to have a total domestic run of somewhere between $4 and $15 million, which is not very good, because all of these films cost usually around $30 to $40 million, meaning that they need to make about 80 to 100 million worldwide to break even. And these are films that are not going to play very well in the international market, and probably not going to get a lot of push in the international market. And so it just makes me continue to ask the question of, what do they expect to get out of these films? You know, a studio in general, especially the same studio, because he's been working with the Open Roads Films, Briarcliff Entertainment, for almost every single one of these films he's done the last several years. And if they're not making their money back, or making money in general, I don't quite understand the mindset. It's not to make art, because if anything, these films are not artistic. So what exactly is the purpose of these films? I don't quite understand. It does not make any sense to me. We do also have these updated numbers for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is now trending up 6% in the opening weekend numbers. So really expected to make around $200 million domestically, meaning that we could see internationally this film make $400 to $500 million in its opening weekend, which would be very, very impressive for this movie, and also would potentially have this film break even during its opening weekend. Right now, the projected budget for the film is around $200 million, which is exactly what most Disney Marvel films cost, which I just don't quite understand why they continue to spend so much money on these movies, because as we saw during the pandemic times and even towards the latter part of the pandemic times, if there is a film that they put out that does not feature a character that people are familiar with or does not feature a character that people have any interest in, they end up losing a lot of money. Remember that the MCU last year, without the Spider-Man No Way Home cut, the 25% cut that Disney got, would have they ended up being in the red, right? The entire MCU was in the red last year. And people can try and blame the pandemic for certain things, but obviously there are certain films that were able to kind of, go against that narrative, were able to make their money back, which cost as much, if not a little bit less, than films like that in the MCU. But I think that this and other studios spending this kind of money on films, hopefully they start to wake up to the fact that they really just can't do this anymore, right? They really just can't throw a bunch of money at a movie, put Marvel on the title or put something else on the title, and then expect to make money. This is one of those examples where I think that this is, in a way, getting, a lot stronger of a connection between this and Spider-Man No Way Home, which was a pretty massive success. But Spider-Man No Way Home was successful because of the nostalgia factor. I mean, let's just be honest here. People went to go see that film and went to go see the film multiple times because they wanted to see the three Spider-Man. They wanted to be able to see Tobey again. They wanted to be able to see Andrew Garfield again. And so that is what led to that film being a success. And the physical media release is going to be a huge success as well. The scalpers bought all of the steelbooks, all the 4K steelbooks, well before it actually got released in theaters. My friend John Flickinger actually did a coverage of this because he denied it. He thought, oh man, no, they always save some for the in-store. I'm going to be there opening day. I'm going to get one. And no, they didn't, because typically what happens is they just sell whatever they can online and they get rid of their stock. And then once it's gone, it's gone. And I think they really need to find a way to fix that, because scalpers are really destroying, for people like me and people like John, who are physical media collectors, our ability to have access to those films in general. But with all that being said, it is something where Doctor Strange, obviously being featured in Spider-Man No Way Home, has a connection there. However, I do say that with a grain of salt, because Morbius could arguably also say to have a connection, since it's a villain anti-hero within the Spider-Man universe, and they definitely tried in their marketing campaign to tie it into the Spider-Verse, and that film ended up being a pretty big failure. I mean, even if the film does reach its break-even point, which is not likely at this point, it still is a failure by all metrics based on what other films have been able to do. I mean, if you compare that to Venom 2, for instance, which was able to make a pretty decent return on its investment, it is nowhere near that level. And so, again, I think that is definitely a bit of a again, I don't know if it's the best argument in the world to say that this film will be successful because of Spider-Man No Way Home, because then why would Morbius not do as well? Obviously, again, Morbius is not a very good film, so that could be definitely a part of it. There's a Jared Leto factor amongst so many others. Doctor Strange is a character that people know. Doctor Strange is a film, has had a film before. People generally like Benedict Cumberbatch. And people are generally interested to see what Sam Raimi can do with this universe and can do with this, especially if he's able to give it more kind of a horror spin to it, which if you look at the trailers, it does seem to have a little bit more of a horror element to it, or at the very least some pretty creepy imagery nonetheless. Still, remember, it is a Disney film. So that means that massive amounts of money are going to be going to the Communist Party of China. And so take that as you will. And again, make your own decisions about whether or not you want to see a film or not. We don't tell you what to do here on the channel. But anyway, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness could end up breaking even in its opening weekend worldwide. And even if it didn't reach that point, based on these projections, 11% up in the total domestic market, $450 to $560 million just domestically, meaning that this film is being set to be the next billion-dollar film. So as you all know, I thought that this could have been the Batman. I thought the Batman was going to be the next billion-dollar film, and obviously that film came in well under expectations because the opening weekend, though it was very strong, didn't really hold up over time. And I think there were a lot of different factors that led to that film, not being the success that it could be. We could see similar drop-offs for Doctor Strange. Maybe they are over-projecting this, but once again, I would not be surprised. This is the first film of the summer movie season. This is going to be the first summer, really, that we've had post-pandemic. I mean, keep in mind that we are now in an age where you can fly on an airplane and not have to wear a mask. That's a pretty big deal. That in and of itself is going to start to change the mindset and culture of people and the habits of people. I do still think that a lot of people have been changed forever, to the point of if they stop going to see the movies in the theaters, that they're not going to go back to see movies in the theaters. So I think that's still going to have an impact on the bottom line of movies going forward. However, I think a lot of people think 85% or 86%, according to some metrics, of the movie-going population say they plan to see at least 2 or 3 films this summer. So that's showing that there's a huge change in that overall mindset and metric. And so I do think that Doctor Strange could end up being a pretty massive success if these numbers indeed do hold. and again, could end up breaking even just from the domestic marketplace, let alone crossing $1 billion mark. Now, will it be as successful as Spider-Man No Way Home? Highly doubt it. Spider-Man No Way Home had so many other X factors going for it, but this will be a pretty big win for Disney Marvel because they have not really had a successful film on their own. Right, without the Sony factor, with the Spider-Man, being, Spider-Man, being borrowed from the Sonyverse, they have not really had a huge success of a film. Shang-Chi was the most successful film that they had last year of the 3 Marvel films that came out, and that one only made around 30 to 40 million in net gain profit, which, if you look at the history of their films, is not very good. It's towards the bottom end of the actual profitability of their overall products, and so this would be a big win for them. But obviously, it is still Disney, who's an evil corporation. But hey. Good luck in Florida, Disney. That's all I'm going to say about that. Firestarter as well. Again, still have the same numbers, no change there. $8 to $13 million opening weekend the week after. So this is going to be competing with Doctor Strange, and so therefore it's going to have that. It's going to have, Sonic the Hedgehog, so many other films that'll be in its 3rd, 4th, 5th weeks of release. And so lots of competition at the box office, which I think is a very good thing. It's a very healthy thing. And hopefully it means that certain films are able to then stick to their release schedule. As you all know, I'm looking forward to Top Gun Maverick. And once we get to the 27th, so in a couple of days, in fact, we'll finally get, because the way Box Office Pro works is that a month out from any release, they put out numbers, they put out the projected numbers for these films. And so in a couple of days, I'll be able to do a long-range forecasting of Top Gun Maverick. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it's looking pretty good because the trailer looks really, really good. And obviously there's issues surrounding some of that because of the fact that apparently on his jacket there used to be a flag for Taiwan, and now it's been taken off, and that seems to be a way to appease to the China crowd and the Chinese Communist Party. And obviously I'm going to call that out every step of the way. However, I'm also going to say that the trailer looks pretty awesome. The director behind it, Joseph Kosinski, who has done films like Tron Legacy, but films that I thoroughly enjoy would be films like Only the Brave, which I thought was phenomenal, and then of course Oblivion, which I think is a very underrated sci-fi film. I just can't wait to see what he does with this visually, cinematically. I think it's going to be a beautiful looking film. The trailer already has me hyped for it, but those are the numbers as they stand right now. So Doctor Strange, I mean, the theaters near me are showing sold out for opening night. So I believe these numbers as they stand. I think this is going to be definitely the most successful film since Spider-Man No Way Home. And do you think that this is the MCU turning around? Do you think this is going to be the MCU going forward? Or do you think it's just because of it being a Doctor Strange film? I think that is, again, I think it's a bit of both. I think that you definitely can say that Disney is putting a lot more effort and putting a lot more trust into this film versus some of the other films that they released previously. They're putting a lot more into their marketing campaigns, for instance, and obviously taking away the Disney Plus day and date release model, or the very short theatrical window model as well, is going to be to their benefit. But also you do see changes in the trends of films. But really, you can thank Spider-Man No Way Home. No matter what film does well from this point going forward, all of them are going to have to give thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home, because that was the movie that motivated so many people, millions of people, to go to the theater again who had not gone in a very, very long time. And so this film is going to owe a lot to that film. But do you think it's going to be as successful as this? Do you think it's going to break even opening weekend? Again, $500 million is going to be that break-even point based on the $200 million production budget. Again, obviously, you could say, well, the market campaign is going to be a lot higher than normal films, but we don't have that exact number, and so we have to go based on what films typically spend on marketing. And so again, $500 million, 2.5 times the production budget is typically the break-even point for any given film, because that takes into account marketing cost and what the studio actually gets. So what do you think about that? Let me know in the comment section down below, and also any of the other films that were mentioned here as well. Again, make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. Also, I have posted an update to some of the tiers on Patreon Subscribestar, and some of the changes are going to be going into effect for the month of May and June. So if you are a member on Patreon or Subscribestar, there are some changes to the tiers that are going to be going into effect starting in May. And so if you are indeed a member, specifically at the Army of Asgard, Keeper of the Bifrost, I think those have the biggest impact. Go check that out. There's a post on Subscribestar and on Patreon that has more information. And again, thank you in advance for all the support that you've given. It again, just insane to me that we reached 25,000 subscribers and that we're continuing to grow. And so to all the new subscribers, thank you very much for your love. Thank you very much for the kind comments and for the discussions as well. I like healthy discussions. Just don't troll, because you all know I have no patience for trolls whatsoever. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Blessed second week of Easter. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my April Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members. Starting off with Patreon with animation commentator Brandon, let's go Brandon, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Father Christopher Miller, Hail to you Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Hymir Ari Hymeson, Inflamed Wood, Jacob from Holland, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Gomer Kyle 79, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Priscilla Hall, Rosella Allen, Stan Andrian, Miss Martin Muses, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B., the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And also to my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand 4, John B., Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alice McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. And also a huge shout out to my Locals members, starting off with Kara Tharp, K Tharp 56. Also, UAB, Mad Dog, Mike Jackson, Robert Barnes, and also a huge support as well to Brett D90. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Locals. And I want to add a shout out for my newest Patreon member, One-Eyed Jack. Thank you again to everyone for supporting the channel. Please, if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, go ahead and check out the top link at the video description. It is my Willow link, as I like to describe it, and it brings you to a link tree where you get access to all of these different locations, as well as all of the various social media platforms that you can follow me on. If you join at the Citizen of Asgard level, you get your name shouted out at the end of every single live stream and video. Army of Asgard level gets you that, plus you get access to a giveaways channel that I have on Discord. If you ever don't have access to that giveaways channel, please contact me. I do send out the link to the Discord and with the instructions on it at the beginning of every single month. But if you don't have access to that giveaways channel where I'm giving away 4Ks and Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff, as much as I possibly can give away is available there. Please just reach out to me and I will gladly walk you through the process to make sure you get access to that giveaways channel. And again, that is, Army of Asgard level, whether you be on Patreon, Subscribestar, or on Locals. Also, if you are the keeper of the Bifrost level, you get access to all of that. Plus, you get access to a podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger. We try and do it once or twice a month. I think we're going to try and do it twice this month to make up for some miscommunication that we had last month. So be on the lookout for that, and look out for those podcast Q&A posts that are always available on the Patreon main page, the Subscribestar main page, on the YouTube side of things as well. The YouTube community tab, you'll always find the podcast Q&A there, and also on the Locals page as well. And if you join at the Chosen of Valhalla level, the highest of the levels, you get access to all of that. Plus, if it's your first month, you get a free t-shirt, any t-shirt you want from my Teespring, my TeePublic, whichever one you want to get it from. You just let me know the size, location I'm sending it to, color, that kind of stuff. You get it sent to you. Plus, you get to be featured once a month on the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where we all come together and just talk about movies and really anything the Chosen want to talk about, and it is a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you all very much for your love and for your support. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.